How about that? There we are, that wonderful voice. Sounds quite sinister. It's enough for anybody. Sorry. I will mute everyone just so that we don't get any extraneous noise. I've got 2 small children running around this house, so hopefully they won't cause any trouble. There we are. Okay. So let's start the meeting. Or start the presentation. Bus Back Better came as a huge surprise to many of us when the government announced this early this year, albeit they had been working on a bus strategy for England for some 2 years before it was formally announced. It prompted Tony Rees, who you've just heard from, to say, I think we should have a pan-Somerset bus user group representing councils and bus enthusiasts from across the county, because the county of Somerset, the local county council of Somerset, its relationship to buses was going to change, because going forward, as a result of Bus Back Better, there was going to be an enhanced partnership whereby the local transport authority will work with the bus operators to develop a bus service, hopefully fit for us all. So Tony, who lives not far from Yeovil, represents South Somerset. Glenn Burrows, who I know is on the call and is known to many of you, I'm sure, represents the Sedgemoor area. John Hassel, Somerset West and Taunton, and I represent the northern part of the county up here in Mendip. And the Somerset Bus Partnership, we have a Facebook page which we'd invite you all to join, and there are generally daily updates on there about bus issues across Somerset. So it's a good place to check out, and you can contact us very easily by sending an email to Somerset Bus Partnership, all one word, @gmail.com. So let's talk about the backdrop to where we are today, and then we can look forward from there. It all started, as many things did, in Mrs. Thatcher's very radical period in office. She created a property-owning democracy, and she also deregulated buses. Buses had been largely run by local authorities, probably not as cost effectively as they might be. And she felt they could be better run by handing it over to the private sector and asking bus operators to run the bus services throughout the country, everywhere but in London, where it was a franchised arrangement with the council there still having the ability to determine bus conditions. Many of Mrs. Thatcher's policies were very successful. Deregulating buses certainly made them a lot more cost effectively run and efficiently run. But as you can see from this graph, it did result in many bus services going, because they were no longer commercially viable, and a very significant drop in the number of passengers over the subsequent 20 years. The next dip that you can just probably see towards the end of this graph was after the 2008 financial crash, when we had an era of austerity, and local authority budgets got absolutely caned by central government, much reduced, and that brought bus funding grants under pressure. And certain local authorities allowed the bus funding grants to take the full brunt of those cuts. And certainly here in Somerset, there was quite significant cuts to bus funding back in 2010, and again later on during that era of austerity. It is interesting that at the same time as buses outside of London declined, buses within London, where they were still run as a sort of enhanced partnership franchise arrangement, rose in numbers, as indeed did public transport in general, the national rail, underground and light train. It was buses which seemed very much at the time yesterday's mode of transport. How that has changed today. One of the authorities, as I've just hinted, that suffered badly as a result of those central government cuts was indeed Somerset. And at 10 journeys per resident, as it is now, or at least it was pre-COVID, Somerset County Council area has now the 4th lowest number of journeys per head in the entire English country outside of London. There are 3 counties even worse than ours, but Somerset bus services, relatively speaking, are getting very little traction. And that's in part because of a big decline over the last 10 years. These figures go up to 2018, and you can see that Somerset was one of the areas with the steepest decline in bus usage. Whereas if we look to Baines, they saw about the equivalent increase in bus usage. Bristol had the most remarkable increase in the whole country of 50%, but other rural areas like South Gloucestershire and Wokingham also saw significant increases. But we in Somerset saw a big increase, which actually was gaining further momentum during the last 5 years of the previous decade, such that over the 10-year period from 2009 to 2019, we saw journeys per head in Somerset almost halve, down by 43%. A fairly catastrophic fall for many of the people who were depending on buses, and it fell because of the loss of bus services, most especially weekend and even more especially evening bus services. That's the past. The exciting thing is we're now looking forward to a much better future. And that's because of Bus Back Better. I think many of us were surprised that Boris Johnson, who of course was Mayor of London and saw what buses could do for London, became such a strong advocate of buses and has turned the tables for buses from being, as I mentioned earlier, yesterday's mode of transport to being an absolutely crucial part of tomorrow's mode of transport. And one of the most important reasons for that is the climate emergency. For this government, getting people out of particularly single occupancy cars and onto buses is a key plank of the government's climate emergency strategy to reach the targets that they've set for themselves. It's to get a very significant modal switch from single occupancy cars to going by bus. And the simple reason for that is that one double-decker bus can take up to 75 cars. It's not just the pollution of the cars, it's the congestion which aggravates the pollution. That is why we need to move cars off our particularly central city streets. And we see in neighbouring Bath a huge effort there over the next 9 years to encourage the use of buses, where they're forecasting a 200% increase in bus usage in Bath by 2030, and a significant drop in the amount of cars going into the centre of Bath. So that was one reason why the government backs buses. The other one is their levelling up strategy. Buses can be key to levelling up. Users of buses traditionally are disproportionately from the less advantaged groups. And it's interesting to note that outside of London, women make 21% more bus journeys than men, which probably should come as no surprise, because often in a single car household, it is the man who very often has precedence over that car, and the wife, the mother, or the widow is often very dependent on buses. So that's further reason why this government is backing buses. And how are they backing buses? Well, what is so important about Bus Back Better, and particularly for a county like Somerset, whose record on buses hasn't been good over the last 10 years, is the standards which they now set nationally for us to expect our bus services to be. First one is the frequency of buses, particularly on main routes. Now, nobody's expecting, sadly, perhaps, rural routes to have high frequency buses. The battle there is to get some sort of viable bus service. But on main routes, in order to persuade people to leave their car at home, the frequency has to go up. And that's both in towns and in commuter routes into those towns. Because if the frequency isn't providing a good enough option for the car driver to leave his car at home, he or she is not going to do it. So it's about getting more frequent buses on key routes. But particularly here for Somerset, which 10 years ago adopted a policy of refusing to fund evening bus services and to cut back on any funding for weekend services. We no longer live in a 9-to-5 economy. We haven't been living in a 9-to-5 economy for a long while now. I've been told by many people, and I know the councillor representing the 184 route in this part of Somerset is listening in on this call. People, particularly on that route, will tell you about the impact that the loss of evening and weekend services have had. It's meant that people can't get to work, or perhaps more often can't get back from work. It means that many of them can't get to the educational opportunities that they want. It reduces the well-being of so many people. Evening and weekend services are considered by the government and the expectations they've raised in Bus Back Better as not an optional buy-in. They are important aspects of any fit for purpose bus service. Improving coordination between bus services and other transport modes. Again, very important issue for the government. They want to see, and they have strategies for it, for rejuvenating even further the rail network. And so ensuring bus services connect with rail services is an important part of Bus Back Better, but also active travel. I mean, the issues we've got to consider is having travel hubs which can service buses, but also can allow bikes to be stored safely so that people can switch from one mode to another. And this might not always be popular amongst car drivers, but improving and expanding bus priority schemes, particularly in the towns of Somerset, looking at the options for bus-only lanes, so that the bus journey can be actually faster than the car journey, and thereby making going by bus more attractive than going by car. There are other possibilities in terms of buses having some sort of priority at traffic lights and roadworks where they can override the existing system to allow them to go through those holdups more rapidly. And particularly for the more rural areas of Somerset, I live between Frome and Bath, but travelling to other parts of Somerset makes me realise just how rural and how many small villages there are in the county. Demand responsive transport, which isn't a cheap option, might well be the right option for many rural villages, and it's an important aspect of Bus Back Better. Much more generally, fares. Whilst the government has kept the taxes on car driving very stable, not rising with inflation, bus fares over the last 10 years have been steadily rising and getting ever more complex, and with different operators. You're having to buy sometimes one ticket with one operator and then having to pay again with another operator. All of that needs looking at. All of that Bus Back Better, the government's policy says, needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed in the bus service improvement plan, which as part of Bus Back Better, every local transport authority is going to put forward. Also the issue of, should young people who very much depend on buses, should they have some concessionary fare, not necessarily as generous as that afforded to seniors, but some sort of concessionary fare. It's something which the local transport authorities are being invited to give thought to. The whole issue of fares, the ease of paying with contactless, and the amount that is being paid is something that the government is inviting the local transport authorities to come up with innovative and ambitious solutions. Last, but most certainly not least, is the whole issue of information about buses. If you don't know the time of the next bus past your nearest bus stop, there is little chance you're going to go there unless it's a very, very frequent service, which isn't the case in most of Somerset. It is a scandal, the bus information which is at most of our bus stops currently across Somerset. Most of them, possibly as many as 90% of them, have out-of-date information. So if I, as a potential bus user, go to that bus stop and look at the sign to see what time is the next bus, it's probably likely that that information is misleading, is not true. It's the sort of thing in advertising would be reported to the Advertising Standards Authority as being not allowed, but we leave out-of-date bus timetables at our bus stops right across the country, and it really is a scandal which needs to be addressed by bus operators and an issue taken up by the local transport authority. Because for very many people, the information at the bus stop is still their means of knowing what time the bus goes. Yes, in various areas, there are local bus timetables produced by local councils. There are websites and there are apps. But even on the websites, quite often the information is out of date and is just left up there. That's another scandal which has to be addressed. The most essential piece of information for getting somebody to go by a bus is that they know when that bus is going to run. And it's unacceptable for that information not to be accurate. So that was all the good news. But after 2019, when this was all starting to be planned, we got sideswiped by the worst pandemic that any of us have ever known, and it's still running. And in certain parts of Somerset, like Charge and Bridgewater and Frome, it's spiking at the highest levels at the moment. It's very worrying how it's going to go on through this autumn. The impact of the lockdowns devastated bus travel. They dropped to some 15% of the pre-COVID levels. And even today, we're only up to about 60 or 70% of pre-COVID levels of bus usage. That's no surprise, because quite rightly, the government said for a long time during the pandemic, don't use public transport if you can find any other way of traveling because of the risk of COVID being spread. That message has now been changed. There is a hope, expectation, prayer that we're over the worst. So I think the next couple of months could be quite serious, which might again hit the return to bus travel by some. But we are hopefully now going to see a further progressive return to buses. But it means that most bus services at the moment are running at a loss, and they are being subsidized by central government. And unfortunately, but understandably, that money is coming out of the £3 billion, huge amount of money, that the government has allocated to help buses get to the state that they need to be to persuade more car drivers to switch to buses. So let's move on to the Somerset BSIP. BSIP is a word that has now entered the vernacular. It stands for the Bus Service Improvement Plan, BSIP, Bus Service Improvement Plan. And every local transport authority, that's Somerset mainly in our case, but it's also to the north of us, WECA, the West of England Combined Authority. It's to the east of us, Wiltshire and Dorset, and to the west of us, Devon, because cross-border routes are often very, very important in Somerset. So it's not just the Somerset BSIP that you should be expressing and reporting and talking to. It should also be, if you have cross-border routes coming into your localities, you should also talk to those local transport authorities. But all of them are putting together a bus service improvement plan. They're putting it together under the most tight, challenging timescale. The government really does want to move very, very quickly on this, and they set a very, very tough timescale. So if you remember, the Bus Back Better came out in March, and there were further explanations, particularly for local transport authorities, which came about 6 weeks later. But by July, local transport authorities like Somerset had to decide whether to develop and say they were going to develop an enhanced partnership. And they were offered £100,000 to do that, which seems quite a lot of money, except this was a job for the transport department over and above all the work that had kept their people busy previously. And say they were going to have to outsource some of that to consultants, because it was a very specialist job. Local transport authorities hadn't been involved in that role previously. Now they were going to be setting up enhanced partnerships working with bus operators. They have 4 months to put their bus service improvement plan together. 3/4 of those 4 months are now up. By the end of October, it needs to have been finalised and submitted to government for approval. It's basically a bid process. The better the bid, the more the government believes your case is a good one, the more likely is you're going to get a generous settlement. It has to be said, when you look at Somerset's bus statistics and bus usage, there is hardly a county in the whole country which doesn't deserve a better deal as a result of Bus Back Better than Somerset. And that's something we should bear in mind and should encourage people to recognise wherever, whether that's Westminster or Taunton. Anyway, by October of this year, which is only 6 weeks away, every local transport authority will be publishing their bus service improvement plan, their BSIP, which will be setting out, not in massive detail, but in principle, the improvements that are to be made in their local area, in their county, in the case of Somerset. And then once approved by government, or once told how much money they will be granted by government, and it will be a competitive bidding situation. So we need Somerset to make a very strong bid, which their consultants, WSP, are going to help them with. Then once they know what they're getting, then they have 6 months to work out all the detail. As any bus operator will tell you, buses are all about detail. We know that if a bus is coming through at 8:33 in the morning, it needs to come through at 8:33. And if it comes through at 8:30, the detail of just those 3 minutes can mean that people miss the bus. Shift changes, bus changes, everything about buses is detail. It is going to be the most enormous amount of work that the local transport authority is going to have to agree with those bus operators, neither of them previously having to work in an enhanced partnership previously. So this is new ground for both of them, and it's going to be very challenging, not only for the local transport authority, but also for the bus operators as well. But Somerset have got the benefit of WSP, one of the world's largest travel consultants, expert in guiding local authorities and national governments through with their bus strategies. And we can only but hope that they will do the sort of excellent job that they are world renowned for doing here in Somerset. So it's likely that Somerset could approve their BSIP at the cabinet meeting in October the 20th. That's speculation on our part, but we assume that it will need sign off at a senior level within Somerset before it goes to the government. So in the briefing that the Somerset Bus Partnership had with Somerset County Council and WSP, they explained the enormous amount of work that they've already been doing. A lot of it's desk work, a lot of it's looking at other government policy statements, of which there have been a voluminous amount, because they all knock on to whatever strategy the Somerset BSIP is to adopt. So they've been looking at mapping population demographics, they've been looking at accessibility heat maps, all the sorts of skill sets that a consultant can help provide to the local authority. And then they've been talking to the bus operators about their experience on different bus routes, the sort of volumes they're getting, the opportunities that they see, and what it might cost, no doubt, to add an evening service or a weekend service. We know in other authorities, they've certainly been doing that. And we've heard on the grapevine feedback from bus operators in Somerset that those issues have been explored with the bus operators here in Somerset. And so they should be, they need to be, so that a meaningful, well-costed proposal can be put forward to the DFT, the Department of Transport. And they've looked at the demographics of Somerset. And when you look at Somerset, you can see the problem for buses. There's an awful lot of green and even paler green bits in Somerset. There is a very large proportion of our county which has got a very low population density. And that makes running viable bus services very difficult. Undoubtedly, it's going to be a very challenging task to ensure that we get an improved bus service as a result of Bus Back Better. But that's the task that Somerset have taken on. That's the task that their consultants have accepted. They produced this really interesting accessibility map, which I'm sure if the district councils could have seen prior to the decision on One Somerset, they might have used to great effect, because this shows how easy or how inaccessible in reality it is to get to Taunton from most parts of the county. For most of Mendip, it is extremely close to impossible to get to Taunton by any public transport means, and many other parts of Somerset would find it very difficult to get to Taunton by any means, other means, apart from the private car. And the prospect of getting back in the evening from a Taunton County Council meeting by public transport is at the moment pure fantasy. We can hope that perhaps that might well change. They've also been looking at socio-demographic data. They're using Mosaic, which is a system I've used a lot. Looks at 14 different categories of social grouping. But as you can see with Somerset, overwhelmingly, it's either a dark or a pale green, which indicates that most communities are rural communities in Somerset. And the thing about buses, they don't just serve the one community, they go from one place to another. So they would go through some different socio-demographic types. It'd be interesting to see how they can utilize Mosaic to help develop bus routes. But it is a tool, it's a very valuable tool. And I know that WSP have used it successfully elsewhere, so they will be exploring the feasibility of using it here in Somerset. We cautioned Somerset about doing a survey because we said that they probably wouldn't get a very high level of response. They didn't get a very high level of response, but they now have their Somerset bus user survey. And what it tells them is that only 8% of respondents in Somerset were satisfied with bus services in Somerset. It seems extremely low. It is extremely low. If you look at Dorset, where there is also a lot of dissatisfaction about bus services, 27% said that they were satisfied in Dorset, which isn't a very good figure, but it's 3 times the level in Somerset. What's more, a lot of them weren't just somewhat dissatisfied. a quarter of the respondents, over a quarter of the respondents, were very dissatisfied. Now, there are other surveys. There was a survey which showed that there was a 60% level of satisfaction about bus services in Somerset, but that was the lowest level of satisfaction in the entire country. I mean, unquestionably, whatever the figures, and we can argue about the figures, there is a very high level, relatively, of dissatisfaction with bus services in Somerset, because for a large proportion of people in the county who depend on buses, they're not fit for purpose. And that's the challenge that Somerset now is facing in terms of developing their BSIP. Further information from the survey just identifies the importance of evening and weekend services. 3/4 of the people who answered the Somerset survey that Somerset County Council ran said they need more evening and weekend services. Those were the services which were cut when Somerset's budgets were cut by the government. One can understand why they needed to be cut, but those are the services which the people of Somerset in this survey are making it quite clear they need restored. Evening and weekend services, and also early morning services, because people have to get to work often quite early in the morning. Shift patterns change at 6 o'clock in the morning. People need to get into work, and often people need to come back late at night, particularly coming from tourism jobs in restaurants, in fast food outlets. They don't close till about 10 or 11 at night, and those workers need to get back home, and they need, in many cases, to do it by bus. So the overall conclusions, and we share these and agree with these with Somerset and WSP, is something needs to be done about fares. There are a lot of confusing different tickets from different operators. Then the fares are simply too expensive for the quality and the nature of and the frequency of the service provided. They're not good value for money, which is why so many people have switched from buses to cars. Something has to be done about the nature of the fares in Somerset. That is a major challenge which is recognised here by Somerset, which needs to be addressed in the Somerset BSIP. A lack of connections between communities, particularly commuter and rural villagers kept going into towns for jobs, getting back from jobs, getting to and back from further colleges of higher education and universities, getting back from visiting hospitals, getting back from shopping. The timetables need to be re-evaluated, and the times of the bus services need to be reviewed, because at the moment they're not suiting the requirements of Somerset people. Interchanges with rail and linking into timetables is considered, especially by the government, a crucially important consideration, and I'm sure it will be given great weight by Somerset in their BSIP. The whole issue of ticketing and the available services, and then the issue of information. And I hope Somerset will seize the opportunity to recognise the importance that information at the bus stop is a vital issue for a lot of bus users, whether in the perfect world that's real-time information, which is what one would like to see, or whether it's just having an up-to-date bus timetable, which doesn't seem like asking too much. But at the moment, on the vast majority of Somerset bus stops, it is asking too much. You haven't got that at the moment. There was an interesting point made about concessionary travel and whether those who benefited from concessionary travel should not be paying more for it, or whether the county should make a higher contribution to the bus operator for concessionary travel. That is an issue. And everybody recognized that making these changes isn't going to be cheap. It's not going to be possible to do this out of Somerset's current budgets, which is why the pitch that they make to government is so vital that it is a convincing one. And the amount of money that we get from government will be a way of evaluating the contribution of WSP and the professionalism of our team in Taunton in the transport department. We need to make a big bit, and we need to make a successful bit. It's interesting that in Dorset, you're now looking at an almost identical set of conclusions for Dorset, which probably isn't a surprise because they're two counties with very similar demographics and rural situation. So that's, you're probably thinking, more than enough for me. I'm now going to hand over to Tony Rees. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think Tony's going to share his screen. Tony is the founder of Somerset Bus Partnership, very, very active co-chair. So Tony, are you raring to go?
I am indeed. Can you or Lucy make, no, I think it's you, can you make me host so that I can share?
You should be able to share now.
Right. Looks like it.
Yeah.
Will be in a minute. Excuse me while I fight the technology.
I know the feeling all too well. Whilst you're waiting, if anybody hasn't put their contact details into the chat, this would be a great moment to do it.
That should be it. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I think that was your last. So yes, Peter has explained the background, the difficulties that we think Somerset County Council will have, and some slides from the presentation they gave us last Friday. They seem to have recognised the problem. You only have to do a very small amount of analysis to realise that Somerset has a major problem. What the government said when they introduced the National Bus Strategy was that they are looking for improvement plans, BSIPs, that are innovative, different, and make a point of that we need to see made that Somerset has a very special need. I was impressed by the work that the consultants had done. They've analysed Somerset. They've got a very good view of what there is and what there isn't across the county. I find it difficult to say I've seen anything yet that is exciting and innovative. And there are some points I think they've missed. in some ways, I need you to tell us that, although again, I think I know the answer. The plan should be ambitious. The National Bus Strategy says to benefit from funding, LTAs will be expected to implement ambitious bus priority schemes and draw up ambitious bus service improvement plans. Comment from Tim, the consultant, last week was to say Somerset is no exception. We're looking forward to produce a compelling document that ensures the county is future ready to meet the challenges in terms of passenger growth, reliability improvements, and decarbonisation of the bus industry. At that meeting also we had Somerset County Council, and Mike O'Dowd-Jones said the Somerset BSIP will effectively be a bid for money. So while we're making a strong case, this was an answer to a question about weekend services, it will have to rely on that government money coming through in order to implement them. What we feel is that that's the start of a suggestion that if we don't get the money, we won't get any of the improvements. The situation in Somerset, after we've all been through this process, is that the authority, together with the operators, now working an enhanced partnership, but between them will still have to provide enough funding to keep services going. And the warning, I think, is there that unless we get the money, we won't get the improvements. I've said many times over and over again, this is a very odd way to fund bus services by having local authorities rely on government grants, which they then hive off in different directions because they're under such pressure. So we're really saying we need each of us to lobby our local MPs to ensure that they're talking to Grant Shapps particularly, telling him that Somerset is so poorly served by its bus network, the county should be a priority area for funding Bus Back Better. So somebody said to me, what we really need to do is pick our top 3 priorities. I'm not quite sure the best way to do this, but I need your feedback as to, very simply, in 2 words or thereabouts, what do you think are the top priorities? I'm willing to open up the chat, to open up to people to put in chat or to unmute themselves, but I'm not asking for long, complicated statements. We've had all them. What do you think is the most important priority for Somerset? I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to let you unmute. I'm willing for you to put something in the chat, because I think we need to identify the top 3. If you can unmute yourself and just jump.
Toby, I'm in London at the moment. I've been at DFT.
I said, David, 3 words. Really,
yeah, I just want to explain something.
For anything else,
because obviously this is government money, and if just hear me out for 2 minutes. The government is at the moment funding the whole industry at the moment of 226.
Yes, we know that.
And the issue there is they've just tried to. Well, they haven't. They've just literally told the bus industry no marketing campaign. That's what the Treasury's just told.
I'm not surprised, and we'll come back.
Why I'm saying all this, it's all right, just Somerset. I think if you're going to get anywhere at all, you're going to have to bring the Southwest together, like the North has come together and the Midlands has come together to get the message across. And Graham, what's his name?
Okay.
Alice was.
That is something.
It's a bit of work to do.
That is something we'll take on after this meeting.
Yeah, but I just think that's where it's got to go, because it won't happen just because Somerset County Council rock a few doors in the DFT. But if the region rocks the doors, from Cheltenham to Penzance and the 2 transport boards, with the MPs, with the mayors, we've got a chance. And that's my message from London. It's very clear we're in for a political
Okay.
fight for the cash.
For today, we're talking about Somerset. I think you're probably right. I've been saying we ought to have a southwest powerhouse, but for the moment, let me put it to you and say, do you agree generally? We need more buses, we need DRT and transport hubs, and we need better and accurate and much more information. We do need a publicity campaign, and as David's just said, and I expect it, the government are backing down on their offer of a campaign. Does anybody think those three priorities are wrong? I haven't mentioned fares.
I do. I think to clarify more buses, I think we need more routes.
Yes. Yes.
I'd just like to say we need the services when we need them, getting to work, getting home for work, and for youngsters to be able to take part in extracurricular activities and things in the evening, social events.
The reason I put this up is because I didn't get the feel that those three were the most important that the consultants were looking at. They are aware of them. DRT particularly is something the government is interested in. A lot of people say it doesn't work. We've tried it, it's difficult, but we need to have new ways of doing it. Peter, Saib?
Yes, thank you. I have to say, I hark back to the days when I was actually transport portfolio holder at South Somerset, and the districts had a say over these things. And I remember the very impressed look on some civil service colleagues' faces when, piling out of a bar at 3 a.m, they were able to step across the road onto a bus which took them to the main square, and another bus took them to the door of their hotel, and they would demand responsive services. You know, please, can we have that back?
John, quickly.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of direct response travel. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
I was at a Zoom meeting this morning for the PPG, and one of the surgeries had our service taking people to the surgery and taking people to the hospital on a regular basis, and it's all voluntary. So there's a voluntary element that we need to bring in to direct response travel. And as you know, I've been looking at coach for minibus companies, taxi firms, and trying to put them all together.
I will come on to that in just a moment. Yes, because I know you've been saying that.
Yeah.
Hilary?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment really on the top priority. More buses, I think, really does need to be expanded a bit in terms of more buses at the right times and in the right places. So a few people have put in the chat about consultation, you know, maybe more grassroots consultation to find out exactly where those buses are needed. More buses is a bit too generic, really. We need to specify and target it.
Sorry, I've gone on. Yeah. What I would put those three headings up as really just the three principles. And what I thought was missing from the presentations and the thoughts that were going around the room from the consultants and from the county were particularly evenings. There was one question they asked us when they were asking us to try and prioritise things, and they talked about, you know, buses running 7 till 7, how important is that? And I said, hang on a minute, 7 till 7 is not thinking of an evening. We're talking about running late enough to get home from evening events. or the last train at railway stations. And that is something I felt was missing. The DRT and hubs, John, I stopped John because he was going to say what I was going to say. I know he's been working with small operators, really small operators, people who do a single bus journey to school. A lot of those have capacity, but it needs the plan to include them. And I felt one of the things missing was the idea of working with small operators. And I think, as John said, working with voluntary groups, working with community groups. There is a statement somewhere in the National Bus Strategy or in the supporting documents that said community groups are not really part of BSIP, but they are, because they fill in the connection between communities. Communities between them, some of them do very good work in. Sorry, I keep clicking on this. Can I stop sharing for a minute? Communities do very good work in running demand responsive transport locally in their area, and we need to pick up on the good practice like with e-links. I keep looking across the border at Bedminster Town Council, who decided to run a bus service because the county had removed it. So there are a lot of things there. The third point was information, and a lot of things have been said, and I've said over and over again, not only must information be accurate and up to date, it must be available. People have talked about a Somerset-wide app, which I think is a good idea, but it isn't actually essential anymore because the data is becoming available online for anybody to develop an app, and there are plenty of them about. But some of our smaller operators, like South West Coaches, don't have the technology to provide the information. So I can go to bustimes.org and I can see where all the first buses are in Somerset, and then there are great gaps because none of the South West Coaches buses are there. So I think missing from the report we had last Friday was anything about getting in touch with the smaller operators to get them to the point where they have the technology. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, which is always a bad idea.
Three people, Tony, have got their hands up.
I know they have.
Very patient.
I think I might let them go while I try and sort my slides out. Mick.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mick Leary from Bridgewater Town Council. I work with Glen Burrows. We need to talk about journeys here. We've already seen from Peter that we cannot get from one part of Somerset to another. And if we're talking about public transport, it's that connection that we need. So when you actually buy a ticket, you are looking to take a journey. That journey will actually take you perhaps on a train. It might take you also by bus. And we need to look at that way for information. But we need more sort of, if you look at Somerset, we can't get from one part of Somerset to another. And that connection is not there. It's not connected to health. It's not connected to education in that way. And therefore, in order to even invite people to make their first journey, perhaps by car, then to get onto a bus, that's what we need to look at in those hubs that are being developed. That has to be developed through planning in Somerset as well, as part and parcel of making sure that public transport is available, is usable, and will help reduce emissions.
You're right, you're absolutely right. And I was reasonably happy that that is what is being looked at as part of the bus service improvement plan. We did ask a specific question, and somebody said yes, they have been talking to Stagecoach about the Falcon service, who are interested in through tickets from other operators. As they move forward in their technology, that is becoming possible, and that is being looked at. How much of any of this will come to pass, I don't know, but you know, that's there. I think Jess is on the top of my list with a hand. Jess?
You're muted, Jess.
Jess.
There, I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
You can indeed.
Yes. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm actually visually impaired, so all the messages flying back and forth, I'm probably not catching everything. I would agree with everyone on the fact that we do need to improve the frequency, the evenings, the weekends, and the routes, obviously. But I've not heard anyone mention accessibility yet. And I think that if we're working on a bus service improvement plan, from the ground up, we need to involve the accessibility component. And one of the main things we can do for that is the talking bus system that you will often find in large cities like London. We really, disabled people really do, we need the bus, and obviously we need it to go the right places and the right times, but we also need to hear where it's going, where the next stop is, so that we can get off at the right stop and be safe.
Thank you, Jess. That is so important. I will be asking in a minute or two, and please don't all leave the room. I will be asking for people to come forward and say, I am prepared to be a local representative or a representative of a particular group. And we definitely need people like you, people from other disability groups, to be watching what's going on, to be looking at this plan, and to be ready to criticize it if it doesn't include those things.
Could Jess give us her contact details, Tony?
Sorry?
Could Jess give us her contact details? Is she able to put it on the chat, or is there
I
a
think
way?
I did. I think I did. I'm from Ashwick Parish Council, if you can see it through the chat.
Right.
Well, I'll get somebody to have a look, make sure we've got it. If not, I know we can get in touch with Ashwick. I'll come back to ask you a question in a minute.
Thank you.
But I don't remember from last Friday's meeting very much being said about accessibility and disability. So yes, again, that is something else.
Yeah.
What I'm really trying to say to you is that the things that those of us who were there at last Friday's meeting think are missing, and anything else you want to say, you need to say to your MP and to Somerset County. We as Somerset Bus Partnership can push and can say we have heard, we have been told, but it doesn't actually carry as much weight as you individually making your point. Brenda, and then I'll come back to my next slide.
Thank you. A couple of things. Following on from what Jess said, I used to work in the equalities world, and just following on from that, the Somerset County Council is the contractor of the bus services, but even so, as a contractor, it is required to meet the public sector equality duty, which means that it should be making adjustments to accommodate people's disabilities and other protected characteristics. So I think, it's been ignored for an awful long time, but the weight of law is on the shoulders of Somerset County Council for failing to address the needs of disability groups and others. But what I wanted to go back to is when you had the 1, 2, 3 list, I think one should be fairly comprehensive and include that buses should actually be there for social, employment, retail, health, education, and climate emergency purposes. And that they haven't said any of that in their climate emergency strategy document, they haven't mentioned buses and the importance of buses to address climate change. So those are the two things, or more than two, I suppose, we've got to say.
Right, which brings me on to we need you. We've done this. We set up Somerset Bus Partnership in April with a core team of 4 people. I think we've achieved a lot. We've got a lot of people excited and interested. You keep coming back when we hold a public meeting because I think you feel this is important. But we need to expand. We need your local knowledge and experience. And, I'm sorry. We need representatives of any group who feels marginalised: disability, older people, young people, ethnic minorities and community groups. What we need to have is for each of you to come in and say, yes, I am willing to be a representative of Somerset Bus Partnership. We'd expect most of those sort of people to be the people who are here, people who are on parish and town councils, people who are knowledgeable about buses in their locality or buses on their route. We could set up route representatives, or we could set up local representatives, and particularly group representatives. We need your help because there are things now that we need to keep pushing and reminding the council and reminding those working on this project, but also moving forwards, that the things that are there in the Bus Back Better plan and the bus service improvement plan need to be enacted and acted on, and not all of them cost money. So yeah, there will be things as a group now we can remind people about, remind Somerset County Council about, and under the bus service improvement plan, they are supposed to do much more consulting with local people. So they need to take notice of what we say. They need to feed back to us when we have complaints. And I have one slide, which I thought I had. There. Particularly, just take one subject, bus stops. Now, if we're going to see an increase in the number of people using buses, I'm going to say to you and to the operators and to everybody else, you get an awful lot of people using buses for the first time. We've done that during the rail numbers going up, and we've had to say to operators, a significant percentage of the people using your service are using it for the first time. What do they see? A bus stop, a bus shelter that's got bits missing, covered in graffiti or even brambles. We have information that is out of date, inaccurate. We need bus stops to be clearly identified. We need bus stops to be clean, and we now need to monitor them. So, but bus stops are just one aspect of this. We need your help to identify things that are wrong, to flag them up, to let us know, and to make sure that we follow up all complaints and all suggestions that that we have asked or demanded in some cases from the council and from the operator. We are now at the stage where we've got nearly 50 people here tonight. We had nearly 100 people at the 2 meetings we had last time we came together. We need to now start formalizing some of this, and I need people to come forward and say, yes, I'm prepared to represent disabled people. I'm prepared to be the local champion for this route or that route, to keep in touch with local people using it and to keep us informed of what needs to be done, and for us to be persuading, all of us to be persuading the council to put in for the money that is available under the Bus Back Better scheme, or even to fight to say, if the Bus Back Better scheme starts running out of money, which we know it will, that we lobby government and our local MPs for keeping that money going.
Can I just ask a question quickly?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have an idea of what champions might be expected to do? If you, I don't know, were to push information out on social media, for example, saying that you're looking for champions for certain demographic groups or routes, people might be interested in doing it, but might actually know what's expected of them. Is there any kind of guidelines in terms of what might be expected of a champion?
Thank you for that. Yes, we're working on that. I haven't got a written document yet, but what I think will be, we will obviously ask you, if you're putting something out in the name of Somerset Bus Partnership, that you are in touch with us, that you have the eyes and ears locally, that you know your local area, your local bus routes, you know people who use them, you feed that back to us as we get information that we will be asking local people to do, and information about the development of the bus service improvement plan. I say the next month is going to be quite hectic. That plan has to be in to the cabinet meeting by the 20th of October, and we will be, from this meeting and from the discussions we've had, we'll be pressurizing Somerset County and the consultant for things we think are missing. But if you think there's something missing that I haven't talked about, by all means contact them direct, or contact our website, or contact me or one of the 4 co-chairs. The details are on the website of the 4 of us and the others who are working with us. So yes, it's to be, I said, I put it at one point, I said a bus champion in every village. That includes the towns as well. To be a champion for buses, to let people know what's happening. For instance, and I go on and on about publicity and marketing, last Monday, Buses of Somerset changed an awful lot of their bus services. They put them back to pre-COVID timetables, not necessarily the same ones, but something similar. So all of a sudden, there was a massive change in bus services in Somerset, which is quite an improvement, and nobody seems to know about it. Yes, they're getting round to putting bus timetables up on bus stops. They are getting round to updating their website, and some of that is wrong because they, like everybody else, they make mistakes. But we should be shouting that here is the start of Bus Back Better. Now, it's already started, and I think that is a message we need to get out. And again, I would be asking you, if you want to be a representative, to be carrying that message and saying, we are part of Bus Back Better. It has begun. Look, there is a better service now from Taunton out on the 25. And there are more frequent buses around the centre of Yeovil. 2 changes I know of, but there are actually quite a few others.
Hilary, just to pick up on that point, I mean, the thinking is that we would formally ask each representative every 3 months to just send us an update. But beyond that, the representative would write their own brief. If there were things that they found concerning, then they be very much welcomed if they raise them. But so it wouldn't be a heavy workload unless that person found that there were issues that they wanted to make it a heavy workload. One other point, I see Sue raise the issue of Taunton bus station. I mean, we really do need some representatives who would be interested in addressing the issue of Taunton bus station. It was an issue that Tony and Glenn and John and I discussed with Somerset. I mean, it's a complex issue because Somerset at the moment don't own the bus station. It's owned by one of the district councils, but it is an issue which is being addressed, or at least initially addressed, in the BSIP, and they're looking at a range of options, and I think we really do need feedback from people locally and very forcibly expressed as to what local people want, and not just to leave it to officers to put something together themselves. I think that the Taunton bus station issue is one of the biggest, very local issues, but probably it's the biggest single local issue in the whole of Somerset. I know how strongly Wells feels about their bus station, but and it's got its problems, but the Taunton bus station is something which really needs community action and a very strong voice. And if Somerset Bus Partnership can strengthen that voice in any way, then I think we'd all very much want to be part of that.
Peter, just on that one, I think it does need somebody who's planning law, because this is very, very complex in the fact that Taunton and Somerset Council are trying to give planning permission to themselves to create a car park to undermine the transport system in Taunton.
Yeah.
If they do that, then we can appeal the whole lot to the Secretary of State against the council as being abolished. But it needs a planning lawyer, and it needs to be done very carefully. It can't just be done by somebody who's a nice amateur person on buses. We've done these before, but the only reason that this is kicking off now is because we threatened legal action with them on the Secretary of State before, over the fact they own the bus station. They wanted to build a car park, totally against local plan policy. Some of us wrote to the Secretary of State for local communities, Blue Call, and he picked it up, as did the county council. So, I mean, they will be abolished, and the county council gets the bus station to sort out, but it's just keeping that situation until the order goes through the House of Commons to abolish the abolish the district councils, and then all the bus stations go to the county. We might be in a better place for the bus station maintenance in the county, and of course, makes the bus. Just a point.
Thank you, David. Well, we've been running for an hour and a half. We had, I think, as many as 56 on the call at one stage. Is anybody else eager to say anything? Thank you very much for sticking with us, and I hope you found it useful.
Peter, is one point I will make, having spoken to the directors of First Group, they've got to run this contract for the government till next April, and what they're running in Somerset, plus the Somerset brand of First. They were running what they believe is what the government will pay them to run across the whole of Somerset, including North Somerset, and as we know, into Baines, and there's issues with buses in Baines and Bristol as well. Now, if there are things that we need to change, and I've just seen a note on the 25, where we need to get adjustments to the present timetable till April, which is government funded and DFT secured, then it is through the county council, or if it's a contract in Mend, if it's through Dan Norris and North Somerset Council, the Mayor of the West of England. So if we can bear that in mind, I'm not an expert on all these buses. I've fed in where we could to try and put buses back. If there are mistakes that have been made, and we have the list through Peter or through Tony, and then we can get that into First and the council and the department, and see if they'll fund some of the missing gaps or things where we believe there's mistakes. This is the best they could do with, I think it was literally Baroness Veer gave First Group and Stagecoach 8 weeks notice to set the timetable for the money that she gave them, which is £226.5 million till next April. But we can make adjustments, they will listen, but as long as it's not going to cost the taxpayer an arm and a leg. By the way, I did speak to the DFT about the budgets, I very much made the point to the director first and to the department. That's fair enough. We'll just have your money from the road budget, which is 27 billion. So we'll just move some departmental heads around. So we don't even have to go to the treasury for any more money. So just bear in mind that, guys, there's 27 billion in the road budget, which is also controlled by Baroness here. If we need to put a bus lane in Taunton, or bus priority measures, or build brand new bus stops, talking timetables and bus borders, we can probably get out the 27 billion. So let's just think about laterally how we can move money around as long as it stays in the Department of Transport.
Thanks, David. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for joining the call.
I think on that happy note, if we can get any of that money into us.
Yeah,
go ahead, quick.
After the last, well, for a long time, I've had a Facebook page set up for our local bus service through the Polden Hills. And I've just sort of enlarged on that by putting a lot of this information on there, other than information about the service and change of timetables, but also just using local, a magazine that comes out for all the Polden villages to put information in, and also on the village Facebook page. So I think that's the sort of thing that someone who's a representative can do, and it doesn't take very long to do. You know, you just sit there with your tablet for half an hour, you can put it all on these groups, and your information's out there.
You're absolutely right. We're all media managers now because of Facebook, and you set up your own Facebook page and then you can share it onto other Facebook pages, and it's the reach that you can get within your locality is really quite astonishing. So campaigners of all sorts can use Facebook, and certainly we as bus campaigners in our part of the world up here in the Frome area have used Facebook very, very effectively and successfully.
So people don't need to be afraid of doing it. I mean, I myself, because of lack of transport, I could never get to a meeting at Taunton, but this is ideal for me to act for my parish council and for the greater good of the area, really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just say a personal thank you, Geraldine? I used information from that Facebook. I live in the Polden villages. My daughters went to college at Street, and that information was very useful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
There's evidence.
Somebody actually read it.
It's nice to see a face.
I think we perhaps wrap it up now, Tony.
I think so. For message for those who are not here, or for people you know who couldn't make tonight's meeting, we are having a similar, almost a repeat session at 4 o'clock on Thursday. The Zoom code will be different, but we have circulated it. It is on Facebook. So can you let people know who you might talk to? So I wish I'd been there. They can come on Thursday at 4 o'clock. And beyond that, we will let you know. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yes, Joanna, that was a mistake. She's gone. Oh no, she's still there. Yes, Joanna. We know we had two different times. It's 4 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. That's why I was late.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay. Thanks a
We
lot.
go on about information and we get it wrong sometimes.
Okay then, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Lucy, have you printed the chat, or do
I have, yes.
So I can close it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Good night, those of us who stuck it out to the very end.
Hang on.
Lucy Naylor.
Yeah.
Copplestone sent me a message, and he's gone now. I didn't see the personal message come in. He's from Holford. I put a note on in the chat about one of the things we talked about in Willerton is instead of trying to do these long 2.5 hour treks from one side of West Somerset into Taunton, why don't we hub between villages into, say, somewhere like Willerton, and then keep doing the good journeys out there? And he sent me a direct message about that because he's in Holford, but I haven't picked up his details from the chat, so I don't know how to get in touch with him.
Sorry, what was his name?
Michael, I've just got to scroll back and find him. Michael Copplestone.
So if we invite him to contact you,
Leston, yeah. And he's from Holford, Holford, which is just up the road from me.
Okay.
In Willerton.
And we've got your email address in the chat, have we?
Yes, it should be in there, yes.
All right.
I'm Willerton Parish Council.
And you're happy for us to pass your email
Yes,
on
of course,
to him?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay, we will do that.
Because this is one of the things that came up as a suggestion, and we're very happy to have a bus champion here because we've got lots of young people who work in hospitality or care who can't use buses whether they want to or not, because can't enter into their factoring because of the times.
Yeah.
So we did have a very good discussion about it as a parish council, and we've got most of the council were very interested in doing a lot of work on it, and we have a very good parish magazine that goes to every house for free, and we could put survey in there and then we'd capture non-users as well as users, and that would be important, I think, because most of the people around here are non-users for a reason. Yeah, anyway, I will disappear now and put my
I'd quite like to have a chat with you at some stage. Perhaps,
yes, of course.
I'll contact you by email and follow up on that.
Yeah, I did put it in the chat, so I'm we're cll.naylor@Willerton. I can't remember, it's in the chat.
We'll find you.
So I think you've got our clerk's details anyway, because that's how it came out to me. But I know it's something we're all very keen on, because I moved from Dulverton, which was not good, to Exford, which was even worse, where we had one bus, but of course you couldn't get back, so I used to have to bus to Dulverton. I used to bus to Dulverton to Taunton, but coming back I had to go Taunton to Minehead and then try to go Minehead to Exford, but that was so many tickets. Actually I could have just hired a car. But now I'm in Willerton and it's brilliant, but it doesn't coordinate with any of the trains, so I can't get a bus into Bridgewater, so because there's the HPC bus, but it doesn't go through Willerton and it doesn't run, so if I go to Bridgewater on it, I get 20 minutes in Bridgewater and I've got to come back, but if I go on the bus into Taunton, I arrive 5 minutes after the hourly train to Bridgewater, and obviously there's no hub in Taunton anymore, and if I come back from London, the last train from London comes in 5-10 minutes after the last bus out to Minehead. And of course we've also got Butlins don't pay towards the buses, so if you come in at the wrong time you can't get on any of the Butlins buses because the buses are full of the changeovers, the Butlins. Now, those sort of tourism things, big providers like that could be incentivized to do something to support the commuting. But anyway, we've got lots of things, and I will leave you be. It was very interesting and it was really good to come along, because obviously I'm quite obsessed with Manchester buses because I'm a Mancunian, and obviously I lived in London for an incredibly long time, and it's a shock to the system being over here. And trying not to be dependent on my car is a real challenge.
Yes.
But we've got most beautiful bus shelters, by the way. We could do, if you want to do awards for the best bus shelters in the county, West Somerset will be bidding for the prize because we've got some most beautiful bus shelters.
There's a thought.
It is a thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's a very good idea.
It's always better to Yeah, praise something that's good
Yeah.
rather than keep complaining about what's bad. That's
Yeah.
a very good thought. I thank you for that.
We could do best rural and also best urban.
Then you got to decide which are which. Yes.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean,
maybe.
you couldn't do what we've done with some of ours over here in the middle of Bridgewater. It's sort of what I mean. But yeah, living deep rural and stuff. Anyway, I will yeah, because
Okay.
some of them have macrame, you know, some of them have bookshops in them and little lots of the notice boards and some of them have got nice flower planters and all sorts. They're all very nice. But there you go.
Okay.
John was telling me of one today that had brambles growing in it. So.
Oh yeah, well round here they'd probably grow blackberries in it and then give
you
little punnets,
okay.
give you little punnets to harvest the blackberries in and some little jars to make your jam and possibly a recipe.
Yay, okay.
But these are the sort that would be a fun thing to do. Anyway, I will leave you all be.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Good night, David. Sleep well.